This is Gemara and Chagigah Daf Adali. All the learning should be an incredible shidduch for yourself. Chaim in the version Miriam Bras Yisrael Gittel Shandel Esther Basha Shana Malko Mordechai ben Davashindo Zikitto Bas Davashindo Shimon ben Chaya Ofik ben Teli Shlomo ben Libby Zahava. They should all find their shidduch Hagoyin Bekarev as well as the learning should be as chusru Shlema for Shmuel Yosef ben Yefed Manu ben Vega Chaim and Sar Shlom Si ben Rezel Eitos Har Bas Knendel Ita Basian Bas Chaysa Yisrael Mendel as their parents ben Yudas Shavlei Shlomo as Nami Bashavigu Shechana Shmo Batil Din Chan Rezel Chayv Asmina Adinei No Bashin Mendas Yu Vega Rivka the Shem Zazil Mechlas Amram ben Yakoit Sarim Bas Kilo Shlomo Yisachar ben Netzi Yehudas Velavram ben Rachel Adaya Shimshon ben Chana V'Gal Perel Bas Esther Miriam Gabriela Bas Sumi Yisrael Yitzchak ben Dina Beisay Sha'ar Chayli Yisrael. Just to begin with some incredible news of Baruch Hashem, Sarah Bas Kila is recovering incredibly from the hip surgery. The learning, I'm sure, was an incredible schos to aid her refuah shalema. We're picking it up in the very bottom of Gimel Amid Beis, the last narrow line, as the Gemara continues the discussion that we began the Masechta with 2 days ago, with being Oyla Regel, who is required, who is chayiv, who is exempt from going Shalosh Pamim B'Ashana 3 times a year, Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot, to be Oyla Regel, the mitzvah of Re'iyah, to appear in front of the Beis HaMikdash. Says the Gemara, Tanu Rabbanan, Ezehu Shaita, what is the Shaita, the deranged person, in which the Mishnah discussed is part of Oyla Regel, Ayoti Echide B'Layla. Either he goes out alone at night, number one. Number two, Alan Bebeis HaKvaros, he sleeps in a cemetery. Number three, Hamakares Ksusai, he rips his clothing. 3 different things that determine a person to be not so stable. So Hitmar Ravuna Amar Achu Kulam B'Vasach. It's not like I said or. Says Ravuna, no, you have to do all of them. You are going alone, you sleep in the cemetery, and you rip your clothing. That's when you're the shaita. That's when you're lacking knowledge. You don't have any das. That's when you're exempt from being Oyler Regel. Whereas Rav Yechon Amar says Rav no, even if you only do one of them, you have the status of a shaita. Asks the Gemara, Heichi Dami, what is the case? If you did these acts in a way of shtos, in a way of craziness, then even Rav Huna should agree that doing one of them should make you a shaita. Let's say you didn't do them derech shos, but you did them for some reason, as we'll see in a moment. You had a reason to do them. Then even if you do all of them, you shouldn't be. So what exactly is this machlokes Rav Huna and Rav Yech? Rav Huna says you do all, Rav Yechon says you do one. Whichever way you look at it, was it done in a way of insanity or not? Answers the Gemara, 3 lines from the bottom. You did it in a way of insanity. So what's Rav Huna referring to? But each time, Rav Huna says there's a way that someone could have explained what he did. That someone who sleeps in the cemetery, nobody could have explained. He could have said the reason is, I want the Ruach Tama to come upon me. And that's the perhaps purpose in which he is doing. He wants to do some kishuv, some black magic, so it looks insane. But he has some reason to explain it. Similarly, he could explain even though it looks crazy. You could say that maybe he has this disease, as Rashi explains over here, that he requires that you have to go out and get some fresh air. So maybe that's why he's walking alone at night. And number 3, we could explain that maybe the reason why he's doing it, he's having some meditative thoughts. He lost the thought, he doesn't know what he's doing. And that's the reason why he randomly rips his clothing. So maybe there is somewhat of an explanation. So says Rav Huna, it looks crazy, but because we could have a bit of an explanation, he's only going to have a din of a shaita if he does all of them. And therefore, keep it on the lekulu, since he does all of them, it's as if kimi shenogach shar chamar v'gamal v'nasamu lakol. Once you do all of them, then it's as if you gored the case in the Gemara B'Makama when an ox gores all types of people, a shar, chamar, and a gamal, 3 different types of animals, and therefore it becomes a muad for all animals. As the Tab Rashi explains the Gemara B'Makama, and we don't say that no, each and every one is its own entity. Rather, we combine the action. So too over here, even though each one perhaps had an explanation, you put it all together and it equals that he is a shaita. But comes on Rav Papa and he argues on Rav Huna. Aleph, 2 lines down. Did Rav Huna not hear the following brisa? Did Danya? You know what a shota is? One that loses whatever we get him. If you would have heard that brisa, that the definition of the shaita is one that everything that we give him he destroys. Rav Huna would have been chayzer. And now ask the Gemara exactly on this detail of Rav Papi Bailu. Is it that Rav Huna would have been chayzer and said that just by ripping clothing itself is not enough? It's like this case, or would he have been chayzer from all cases? Meaning, what is this Bryce? The Bryce that says he's destroying everything. What point of Rav Huna's din is it coming to disagree with? Is it all of them or just the case of ripping his clothing? And says the Gemara Teiku, we have to wait for Eliyahu Hanavi to resolve this question of Rav Papa and Rav Huna. And the Mishnah continued and taught us that a tumtum and a dragon is one whose male member is either covered over or he has both simanim of a male and a female, zachar and a kiva. We said he is pater from being oiler regel. Says the Gemara Tanu Rabbanan, about 8 lines down, zachar. So this we're darshaning about pasuk. Let's look at the pasuk for a moment. The pasuk says shalosh pamim b'shana, 3 times a year. Yireh kol zichurcha, all males should appear. El pnei Adon Hashem. So this word zichurcha is that which the Gemara now is going to focus in on. So it says the Gemara zachar, from the fact that the pasuk says zachar, referring to males, loitzias anashim, that excludes females. Zichurcha, which says your, in the possessive, your males, loitzi tumtim v'adroigin, it comes to exclude one who we're not sure and one who has both. Kol zichurcha. Then when the pasuk says we're called together with it, lerabois esaketanim. So 3 parts of the drasha, says the Gemara. Number 1, zachar says not female. Zicharcha says not tumtum and androgynous. Kol zicharcha says not ketanim. And obviously we know that this is not simple with the reading of our Mishnah. Just to point out, the Gemara, of course, is going to have to deal with our Mishnah says ketanim are yes chayiv, and pater. And in this brayso it would seem that they're excluded. And the Gemara is going to go through one after another in each of these drashas. Again, let me just say the last detail clearly. It says l'rabois, to include, and our Mishnah says we're going to exclude ketanim, and that's obviously not simple with our Mishnah, which the Gemara is going to deal with in a moment. So says the Gemara, Amar Mar, let's dissect this 3-part drasha of the Brisa. Zachar, loitzi is an ashim. Halam likra, says Mar, why do we need a pasik? Michti mitzvah zaseish man grama. We know this. It's a time-bound mitzvah. V'chol mitzvah zaseish man grama nashim b'turais. So why do we need a pasik? It's obvious. It's a time-bound mitzvah. Shalosh regalim. So why do we need a pasik? Explains the Gemara. Itzrich, we indeed need it. Because I would have thought as we learned yesterday, you would have thought that the connection, the Gzir Shava that links our mitzvah of being oiler regel to Hakel should come and teach us that Malahalon by Hakel, Noshev Chayavis, Avkan Noshev Chayavis. You would have thought that linkage teaches me that there's indeed an obligation on woman just like Hakel. Kamashmon Zachar, and not Nekeva. Drasha number 1. Drasha number 2 says the Gemara Amar Mar, Zicharcha, your loiti tumtum androgynous. Asks the Gemara, I would have thought that an androgynous, one who has simanim, both male and female properties, I would have thought, obviously, Sad Zachar's part of him is a Zachar as a male, so you would have thought he's L'chayev. Kamash Mlan Dibrei. So says the pasuk, no, Zicharcha, only your males, and not this unique creation. Elotomtom, one who the member is covered over. Sfeiko, it's a suffix. Why would we need to include him once we know it's only males? And this guy's a suffix if he's a male. Why would we need a pasuk to say and not this tomtom? Amar Abaya, Abaya says we're talking about a unique case. We're talking about a unique case where the tumtum has his beitzim, his testicles are on the outside, and therefore he certainly has some simanim of a zachar, and that's the reason why we need a special pasuk to exclude that he is not chayiv. And Amar Mar, going in the third part of the drush that said, Kol Zechorcha, the rabbi says like Tanim, which we pointed out, the Bryce here is teaching us a katan is chayiv in oil regel. V'tanan, we learned in our Mishnah, Chotz B'Ereshet V'Katan. Our Mishnah clearly teaches that a katan is potter. Amar Abaye, like Kasha, 6 lines in the white lines. Kan be'katan shegia lechenach, kan be'katan shelo yigia lechenach. If the child reaches the age of chenach, 6, 8, etc., then he has din of oil regel. If he's younger, then he does not. Ask the Gemara, katan shegia lechenach derabanani. It's a din derabanan. So how are you learning out from a pasuk? Kol zecharcha, to include the child that reached the age of chinuch. It's a din derabanan. We don't learn derabanan from sokim. Says the Gemara, Eina Chanami, you're right. Ukra asmachta ba'alma. It's true, it's only din derabanan. And the pasuk is not a source, it's just a reliance in a smachta alluding to this point. Ask the Gemara, if that is true, then why do you need the pasuk? If the pasuk is just an illusion, it's just an asmachta, so why exactly do you need the word kol zecharcha? Explains the Gemara, we need a lichda acherim, we need it for something else, the opinion of the acherim. The Tanan, acherim, oimrim, 2 lines on the white lines, hamikames, hamitzarif, nechoshes, va'aborsi, 3 different professions, which are quite smelly and disgusting professions. Hamikames is someone who cleans up dog excrement, hamitzarif, nechoshes, he smells copper, haborsi is a leather tanner. These 3 entities, beturim in ariyo, why? Mishum shenemar kol zecharcha, these entities do not have to be oil regel, because the Bible says all, and you have to be able to go together. Mishayachal kol zecharcha, someone that could come together with all of Klal Yisrael. Yatu elu, these are excluded because the nature of their profession stinks and smells, and the Mefarshim explained that it's absorbed into their skin. They can't even get rid of it. Therefore, they're not able to be oil regel. That's why they are excluded. That is the kol. And then it's also an asmachta for a katan she'igia lechinuch. And now we continue on the second white line, continuing the list in the Mishnah of those who are exempt from being oil regel. Nashva avodim she'enim bechurarim. Mishochrarim, women and slaves that are not freed, a slave that is still working is not obligated to being oil regel. Asks the Gemara, Bishlam and Nashim Kalamar, woman, we understand. Like we explained a moment ago, Zachar, loitzi anashim, males and not females. Elavodim inalan. How do we know that a slave is excluded from this din of being oil regel? Amar Avuna Amar Kra. El Panei Ha'adin Hashem, the end of the passage that we've been darshing the whole day, it says he should appear before the Master Hashem. From the word Adin, what does that mean? Mishein lo yel Adam echad. You know who has to appear in front of Hashem? Someone who has one Adin. Yatza zeh sheish lo Adin acher. This person has another Adin. He's a slave, and that's why he's excluded from the mitzvah of oile regel. Ask the Gemara, halam likra. Wait, why do we need a pasuk? Mechti, let's see. Any mitzvah that a woman is obligated and a slave is chayav in. How do we know that? The Gomar la miisha. So an Eved is on the same level as a woman. And once we know that a woman has no obligation to be oil regel, seemingly an Eved will not either. So why do we need a special pasuk el Pnei Adain, a special drush only someone has one master, not a slave that has 2 masters? We should be able to learn it from the equation of la, that she is just like that the slave, has the same obligation as a woman. Amar Ravina explains, Ravina lo nitzcha ela you know we need it for, you're right. If it's a full-fledged slave, it's a regular din of a woman. La will know that they're exempt from being oil regel. What about someone who is half Eved, half free man? That's the case that we need a special pasuk. Dekinami, and the Raya is the Ketani Nashim Avodim Sheinon Mishuchrarim. The Mishnah speaks out a slave that's not freed. That's a funny thing, says the Gemara. My Sheinon Mishuchrarim. What does that mean? Lame, if you're going to tell me that it means Sheinon Mishuchrarim L'Klal, they're not freed at all. It's a full-fledged slave. So just say, List me Avodim Stama. Just say he's a slave. A slave that's not freed is a regular slave. So why did the Mishnah have to say, oh, slave that's not freed? Read a little bit deeper in the Mishnah. You know what it means? Not fully freed. What's that case? That's the case that we need a pasich mel penei adain. He has one master, and this slave that has chatzi eved, chatzi ben chayrin, half slave, half free man, has two masters. He has his master and God. That person's going to be exempted from being oile regel. Shema mina, beautiful raya. Continues the Gemara, 3 lines on the bottom, Dalam and Aleph, the list in the Mishnah of those who are exempt from being oile regel. Achigir suma chayla zakein, one who's lame, blind, sick, or elderly does not have to be oile regel. Tanu Rabbanan says the Gemara, rigalim, as we've seen already, the pasuk shalosh rigalim, prale bali kabin, that comes to exclude someone who has bali kabin, wooden feet. Davar acher, similarly, regalim, prale chigar, someone who's lame, ulachayla ulasuma lazakein, anyone who cannot go in his regalav, his regalim, his legs, is excluded. Ask the Gemara, what does that come to include? The Raisa list, someone who's lame, someone that's sick, someone that's elderly, and someone who cannot walk in his legs. What's that additional phrase coming to teach us? Amar Rava says, Rava, you know what it's coming to refer to? La Asuye, as we turn over to Dalad Amad Beis, it's referring to an infinite amafunach, a delicate person. T'chsev, as the pasuk says, kitavol liros b'nei Hashem. As the pasuk says, they only let it appear in front of Hashem. Ba'kish. Excuse me, kisavo lirois panai. When you come to visit me, says Hashem, me bikeish continues the pasuk. Who looks out for me? Miyadchem, from your hands. Ramos chatzeirai, to trample my courtyard. And in these words, Ramos chatzeirai, as we'll see in the Tab Rashi says it's only a person that can walk in his own 2 feet, but someone that needs a walking stick, someone that cannot walk regularly, someone that is a mefunach, he is delicate, he is going to be able to be one that is not going to have a chiyav to be oile regel. Tana, we learned in the Mishnah, ha'arel v'atame p'tur min hariyah. Now, once we're on the topic of all those that are exempt from being oile regel, says the Gemara, someone who's an arel, who did not have a bris milah, and Rashi points out, it doesn't mean someone who does not have a bris milah. It means he's not allowed to have a bris milah. This is a famous machlekes, we shine him all over. What an arel refers to, Rashi Shita always is. He's not allowed to. Why? Because his brothers died from getting a milah, and therefore the halach is he's not allowed to. So he's doing the right thing, but yet he's a din of an arel, and therefore he's a certain special din. One of the dinim are, he's not allowed to be either regel. And number 2, Tami is p'tur min hariyah. Says the Gemara, I understand someone who is impure, he's part of the Chsevu Basa Shama Vevesim Shama. The Pasuk says you're coming to the Beis HaMikdash and you're going to bring the karbanos. From the juxtaposition from coming to bringing the karbanos, we learn out Kol Sheyesh B'Biyah. Anyone who comes to the Beis HaMikdash and can bring the karbanos, Yesh B'Havaya. The two go hand in hand. Someone that could come has to be someone that could bring a karban. And therefore, one who is Talmeh, he's not able to bring a car, but he doesn't have to become Taylor Ega. Ela Arom, we know, where do we know? Someone who's an Arom, someone who did not have a bris milah, he still has his foreskin. How do we know? He is part from being Taylor Ega. Hamani explains the Gemara, Rabbi Akiva. Who's Rabbi Akiva? Demarbi. The Rabbi Akiva learns as follows: La Arel Kitame. Rabbi Akiva learns that an Arel has the same status as a Tame. Titania, where do we know this? Dina, we learned as follows in a Brisa. Rabbi Akiva Omer Ish. The Apostle says Ish 2 times. The Rabbi says Arel. And Rabbi Akiva says that an Arel has the same status. Ish Mizar Aron. Rashi points out through Saru Aizav, and that teaches me that the Arel has the same status of a Tame, and he's not allowed to eat Truma if he's a Kohen, and therefore the same status of a Tame with regard to being oile regel, just like a tamei is not have an obligation of being oile regel to go to the Beis HaMikdash shalosh pamim b'ashana, so too an arel. Tanu Rabbanan. And now we go a bit deeper into those who are patur and exempt from being oile regel. Tanu Rabbanan, about 8 lines down, Daladum and Beis, Tamei patur min hariyah. How do I know? The Chsevu Basa Shama Veisa Shama, as we just learned. Kol sheyesh b'Biyah, yesh b'Havaya, v'chashen b'Biyah, ina b'Havaya, goes hand in hand. Bring karbanos and being oile regel. Rav Yechlam and Davaya, Imer Misham Rav Yudah, Suma Bachs Me'inav, as we've seen already. Patur min hariyah, if you're blind in one eye, Shenamar Yira'eh. From there we learn out, Kedera Derech shebalir ois, kach balira ois. Ma balir ois, just like the way that you normally see b'shteinav af lira ois, b'shteinav, the way that you are seen, the way that you come to be oiler regel is with two eyes. One with one eye, says the Gemara, is pater from being oiler regel. And now from here, we go on a bit of a left turn, a bit of a tangent, maybe it's a right turn, a bit of a tangential discussion, how these psukim affected different Tanaim and Amoraim, and that's going to take us all the way through tomorrow's daf, darshaning up different fascinating psukim. And the Gemara begins with Rav Huna, as we were just talking about Rav Huna a moment ago. Rav Huna kimatil haikra, when he reached the pasuk that we just discussed a second ago, about having to be able to see with both eyes, the regel, yira'eh, bachi, he started crying. And he explained, Amar Eved she'rabbi of the Raisai, an Eved, a servant that the master longs to see him. Yet Yisrachik mimenu, yet we see the master distance himself. Trample my courtyards again. So Rav Huna's darshaning up. Klal Yisrael, Hashem loves to see us, and yet Hashem is going to distance us if we have certain deformities and deficiencies. And similarly, Rav Huna, two lines of the wide lines, Kimatil Aikra, when he reached a different pasuk, Bachi, he cried. What was the pasuk? It was the Vachta Shalamim, and he should bring the karba in Shlamim, Vachaltam Sham, and he sheet it there. And from here we learn out, David Sharabba Mitzav Lachal Al Shulchanai, we have a slave in which the master wants him to come eat by him. Yet, Yisrachik B'menu, yet the master says, I can't deal with you, you have to be distanced. Hashem says, why do I need your karbana? Hashem, we see that even though we're beloved by Hashem, there comes points and times Hashem has enough. Due to our Averos, it sends us away. Rav Elazar kimatil haikra, on the second white line, Bachi started crying. By Yosef Atzadi, the brothers couldn't answer him. And says Rav Elazar, a famous Joshua, because they were dumbfounded, they were astounded by the rebuke. The Chafetz Chaim famously used to quote this drasha all the time. The you see what happened to the brothers? They draw a drop, they couldn't talk. And we continue with Rav Elazar, Rav Elazar, when we reach a different pasuk, he cried. The pasuk says, Shmuel says to Shaul, Lama here, guys, Lama. What is the reason here, guys? Tani la alois, I see. What is the reason you disturbed me to raise me up? Shmuel asks, Shaul, pasuk in Shmuel, al perach avches. Uma Shmuel atzadik, we've Shmuel, the incredible Navi and Tzadik. Misyari min adin, yet he is afraid of judgment. Anu has, mere mortals. Halachas kama v'kama. We explain, Shmuel, Mai, where do we see Shmuel was afraid of judgment? To save the pasuk says, V'ataymer isha al Shaul, the woman says to Shaul, Elikim re'isa oilim. The woman says to Shaul, by Eviyome Ishal Shal Elikim. I saw a great man descending, and based on this accusation of the woman, oilim trey. Oilim, the word oilim is trey mashma. It's mashma, two ascendings, two people got up. Shmuel called up Moshe Rabbeinu to testify for him. Amar lei. Shmuel says, maybe I'm being summoned to judgment, so he calls Moshe Rabbeinu and says, come stand with me. Because there's nothing in your Torah, Moshe, that I did not fulfill. You'll be my defendant. Ravami reached the following pasuk. He would cry. The pasuk says, he did buffer pihu ulai yish tikva. Let him put his mouth to the dust. Maybe there will be hope. And Omar says, Ravami kulei hai ulai. Only perhaps there'll be hope after everything, all that we've endured, all the sufferings. Only perhaps we see the incredible punishments that could befall a person. Rami similarly came up to like Krabachi, about 10 lines to the bottom. The first one line is Lahai. He started crying. The pasuk says, Bakshu Sadik Bikshu Anava, Ulai Tistru B'Yayim Af Hashem. A very similar pasuk. You seek out righteousness and humility, and then only perhaps will be concealed on the day of Hashem's anger, B'Yayim Af, the anger of Hashem. Omar and Ravami similarly darshes Kuli Hai Ulai. After everything, only perhaps will be able to stand. Ravasi came up to like Krabachi, and Ravasi reached this pasuk. He cried. The pasuk says, Sinu Rav Ayivei. Hate evil and love God, Veitzigu b'shar mishpat, and established by justice by the shar. Ulai yechanin Hashem, perhaps Hashem yechanin Hashem l'kei tzavakos, or perhaps Hashem will forgive you. Again, kulei hai v'ulai, after everything, only perhaps. Rav Yossi matzlai krabachi v'yesh nisva b'lei mishpat. The boss says are those that succumb, those that fall without any judgment. Amar mika dazu b'lei zmane. What does that mean? Someone could fall, someone could succumb, someone could be nifter without judgment. It's not his right time. Is that a possibility? Mika da'azul b'leizmani, someone who's nifter not his right time. And indeed he responds yes. Ki hod Rav Bibi bar Abai is about to teach us. As we're about to see in a moment, Rav Bibi bar Abai would hang out with the Malach HaMavis, and we'll see from the stories about to ensue that there are times that one could actually be nifter before his appropriate time. Of course, these are deep and difficult discussions. Let's get the Pashib shot. 4 lines from the bottom of Dalam Beis, Amli l'shluchei. The Malach HaMavis said to Shliach Zelaisli Miriam Megadla, go bring me Miriam Megadla Seir, the one that braids hair. Nasi Lazel Aisi Le Miriam Megadla. Neshaya, excuse me. And the shliach of the Malach HaMavis went and brought Miriam, who's a caretaker, the wrong Miriam. Amar Lei, the Malach HaMavis says, "Ana Miriam Megadla Seir Neshaya Amrilach." I didn't tell you Miriam, the school teacher. I told you Miriam, the hairdresser. So Amar Lei, so the shliach says back to the Malach HaMavis, okay, so send her back. Let her continue living. Amar Lei, the Malach HaMavis responds, no. Once you brought her, it's over. She has to be numbered amongst those who are nifter. But how can we do this? So Rav Bibi asked the Malach HaMavis, how can you take someone if it's not the right time? Explains the Malach HaMavis, having a kita, she was holding a stick. She was holding a stick in her hand. And what was she doing? She was inside and prodding through the oven as we turn over to tomorrow's Daf Yomi. And what happened to Machrei? Tanuri shekalta, and she was sweeping out the oven. Shekalta v'anachta gaba, and then as she pulled out the stick from the oven, it fell. Anachta gaba dekara, and it fell on her foot. Kadcha v'itra masla. She burnt herself, and her mazel was messed up. V'it say, and that's how I was able to make her be nifter, even when it's not her time. So Amar Lei, Rav Bibi bar Abai again says to Malach HaMavis, how can you do that? You're telling me a whole beautiful story that she's in the oven, it falls in her foot, and her muscles messed up, so you killed her. But how can you do it if it's not the right time? Amar Lei, but the Malach HaMavis responds back to Rav Bibi bar Abai, does not say, there are those who die without the justification, not the right time. Amar Lei, Rav Bibi says, good pasuk. I've never pasuk. It says one only is nifter at the right time. Amar dairana lehu. So the Malach HaMavis says, I take these nefashos, these people who die prematurely together with me, adamalu ledare, until they reach and they complete their generation. And then I send them to Daima, who's the Malach in charge of the next world, the Malach who's in charge of those who are nifter. So whatever this means, the Malach HaMavis is teaching us that when someone is nifter before the right time, he takes their neshama, and the neshama, the nefesh, stays with the Malach HaMavis and floats around the world until it's the right time to be nifter. So Amar Lei, Saif, Shaniz Mayavate, but still says Rav Bibi, Shan is my Ovid. He says to the Malach HaMavis, but what do you do with the years that he wasn't supposed to be an iftar? Amar Yikasur Me'Rabanan, Mavar B'Mili Masivin Eluhu. If there's a young Talmud Chacham, we give him those years. The Talmud Chacham that's forgiving, he gets the extra years of this person. Masivin Eluhu Le'ei V'Havei Chalufei, and that is the replacement. And we're going to stop over here. An incredible Gemara, a bit difficult to understand, but we're seeing that the Malach HaMavis is teaching us that there are times the one could be nifter, and the Malach HaMavis takes those years and gives it to Talmud Chacham. That person waits until the right time, and we'll pick it up from